All right, welcome to the World of Art and Magic podcast, where we talk to storytellers, filmmakers, comic artists. Today, I have the filmmaker Buddy Calvo with me. Buddy, can you give us a brief introduction?
Yeah, my name is Buddy Calvo. I am a filmmaker from San Antonio, Texas. Been doing this since about 2006. Writer, filmmaker, director, cinematographer. I've worked sound. I've worked all sorts of different crew positions, and most recently been getting more and more into the writing side of things. I'm also a musician, and overall just try to be as creative as possible.
So the poster that you have behind you, what
Yeah.
is that a reference to? That's your film. That's the film you directed and wrote.
Yes, that's our last feature film that we did, which we made in 2016, released in 2017, I believe. It's a film called Stage Five. We did that here in San Antonio, Texas. It's a post-apocalyptic film.
Hmm.
Pretty good time. Pretty cool.
So what is the story about? What is the idea behind Stage Five?
Yeah, Stage Five is about a pandemic. Before the pandemic was a thing. What if yeah, what if there was no more? What if kids were the only people left on Earth? That was basically it. So kind of Lord of the Flies meets everything apocalyptic. Yeah, it was a cool idea that we came up with. A very simple idea. It kind of ballooned into something else. But yeah, at its core, it really wasn't about zombies or anything like that. It was more about a disease that was wiping out the very young and the very old, basically anybody with a weak immune system. So you were left with you have these different stages. So like stage one was the elderly and like the newborn. Stage two is like your kiddos from 1 years old to 5 years old. Stage three, so on and so forth. So in the film, we're left at stage five, which is the last stage, which are the people with the strongest immune systems, what we thought of in the film. So that's like your teens, late teens, all the way into maybe like 30 years old, that age, maybe 16, 17, all the way to 30. So much for anybody else. But that was the idea. And we never fully explained that in there. Like we kind of reference it, but not really. Like we don't get down into like the age, like the numbers, but I just know that from being a part of the writing, being the writer. But yeah, that was stage five. It was a blast to work on and pretty cool.
Yeah, before we started recording the podcast, you were talking about like how difficult it is to get something like a film actually completed. And I mean, it's really impressive that you wrote something and then you directed it. So I'm curious, like, what was your what was your process like in terms of like how did all of this start for you, and then how did you get to a point where you got funding? Like, what were the roadblocks that you had along the way?
When you're
Because I mean,
asking how did it start, you're talking about specific to stage five. How did that start?
yeah, like okay, so we could start like where did the idea come from, and where did like did you write it specifically to make it a film, or did you want to make it a book, or
Yeah, so stage five came from I was a teacher, high school film teacher,
okay,
and I was a high school film teacher for 5 years. And I started a film club with the kiddos there. And one day we're at film club, and it's a really ugly day here in San Antonio. It's dark outside and ugly and very windy. And we were in some classroom. It felt like we were in a basement, but we weren't. But I don't know why. It just felt like that. I think because the windows were very high. Maybe that was why. Anyway, and from the windows being high and the kind of look outside and the ugliness, I kind of started getting inspired. Just I didn't know it at the time, but I guess things were going on in my head. Anyway, our film club group, had just entered a contest for make your own film trailer. So our little film club that I taught film to, we were going to make our own film trailer. That was the contest. So I'm there with the students, and we're trying to toss out ideas. And what if we do this? And what if we do that? And so the students really wanted to do a zombie movie. I think The Walking Dead was still really big. Not that it isn't now, but really big. And they wanted to do like a zombie trailer. We'll do something zombie. And I said, "Oh, zombies have been done. I don't want to do a zombie thing. Even though it's them, I don't want to do that." So then I said, "Man, we're all here. It looks like it's the end of the world outside. Isn't that crazy? And it's just us here." And and there was another teacher there with me. We were the leaders of this group. And I said, "Wouldn't it be cool if everyone outside, like, wouldn't it be crazy if everyone outside died and there was just kids left? Like, that'd be crazy, right?" And the other teacher kind of stops and looks at me, and he's like, "What did you say?" I said, "Well, like, even if we weren't here and the only people left in the whole world were like kids, high school kids or whatever, like, it'd be nuts, right?" And everyone kind of gets quiet, and then the room erupts. "That's the idea." So we started this idea. That's where it started from. We're going to do this film trailer. And I think the trailer is somewhere online. If not, I have it somewhere. But the trailer, it was called Stage 5. I came up with this whole idea, a lot of it right there on the spot. Just the kids are yelling stuff, and I'm putting stuff down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the original trailer was shot with high school students. And there's this actor. You're from Texas, so you may know. There's this actor named Jesse Borrego. He was in a movie called Blood In and Blood Out. He was in Con Air with Nicolas Cage. He was in a whole lot of different things. High School Flash. I forgot what it. But a lot of really cool stuff. And I apologize to Jesse, because Jesse's my friend, but he's been in so many things that I always think of him from Blood In and Blood Out. Serious, really great actor. And he happens to be a friend of a friend. So he came in and did this role. I mean, he's a real legit SAG actor and everything, but he's here in San Antonio. So a friend of a friend got a hold of him. He did this newscaster role. We put, one of the students' fathers drove an ambulance, so we got an ambulance there. But so the production value was through the roof. Mm-hmm. And we put together this really cool trailer. We didn't win. We got like 4th place or something. It was an international trailer film competition. But after that, I couldn't get the idea out of my head. And I was like, man, what if we made a movie out of that? And we had already done films and shorts and stuff. And so I just started thinking about that. Like, I couldn't stop. So I wrote a draft of a script and wrote. So, I don't know what happened from there to funding, but that was a huge block. You meet a lot of people in filmmaking. You meet a lot of people who say, it's just going to sound so negative, but it's been my experience. Wesley, am I allowed to cuss on here? I don't know if I was about to start. Should I not? Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. You just meet a lot of bullshitters, a lot of shit talkers.
Yeah. I got you.
And we went through our fair share on Stage 5 and in previous films. And so finally, I got introduced to Boris Diaw. He was a Spurs player.
Okay.
He was on the San Antonio Spurs. He was on their championship team that had won, I believe, that year, that 2014 year, with Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard, and all them. And Boris was there in San Antonio. And somebody got me his email. I said, yeah, right. This isn't this, because it's the most generic email, like borisdiaw@gmail.com or something. So I shot him an email. I sent him the script, and I said, there's no way that's him. And about a week later, he shoots me an email back, and he says, hey, I love this script. I'm super into photography. I wanted to get into film. Let's talk. So that in itself was awesome, because I'm a huge Spurs fan, huge. So I was like, I don't care if nothing happens, I'm going to meet Boris Diaw. So we go to lunch. His business manager's there, who I've since become really good friends with, and I work with him on a whole bunch of stuff. He's trying to talk Boris out of this, like, don't do this. You don't know anything about filmmaking. But we go to lunch, and I pitch him on this, and yeah, he digs it. So he made me a deal. It's crazy to think about. When you think about everything now, it's funny. Um, he was doing a commercial for a company called Withings. They're like the Apple company for the US, the Apple watches. They had
Okay.
Withings and they have a cool watch. He said this production team is going to come to San Antonio and they're going to need all sorts of stuff. Lights and grip trucks and this and that. You take care of that, Mr. Filmmaker. You show me how good you are, and then we'll talk. I got what he was doing, kind of making sure I wasn't full of shit.
Right.
So my wife, Perla, she's a phenomenal producer. We both started at the same time, and that's another story. But Perla ends up producing this whole thing. We're not getting paid, we're getting nothing. And at the end of this production, it took us like a week. These guys from France come in, and super loud, eccentric, crazy guys that want to stay up all night and then film, and drinking wine and just a lot of energy and just crazy. Well, let's go shoot in front of the Alamo, and we're like, we can't shoot in front of. We need all sorts of. Just give me the camera and get out of my way, like that kind of, which I dig. But it's just madness. I wouldn't care if we were getting paid or something. But it's a week's worth of work, and it's just madness. At the end of the commercial shoot, the business manager pulls me aside. I'm frazzled and fried, and I'm not even thinking of stage 5. I'm just like, man, what a week it's been. He pulls me aside, and he has a checkbook out. Opens up the big checkbook, writes a check, pulls it out, hands it to me, and says, "See you later." And that's a big part of how we got our funding. Now, we had gotten a grant from the city. We'd gotten a little other money, but Boris and the business manager, that was the huge part of the funding, really big part, and probably like 80% of the funding. And yeah, that's how we did it. But that story, funding for filmmaking is crazy like that. Like, unless you have a deal in place with Amazon or Netflix, or you happen to know some rich, a creative person or some person that won the lottery, I don't know, that's just going to fund your work. It gets nuts like that. It gets, hey, I know a guy who owns an oil well who wants his daughter in a film, blah, blah, blah. Let's go meet him, and it could turn out to be nothing, or it can turn out to be, all right, how much do y'all need? $500,000 here, get a check, and make sure she's in the. It's nuts like that. Like, you meet a lot of really strange characters. It's cool though, because I've met a lot of crazy cool people that have deep pockets, but it also gets a little frustrating, and it's taxing on you. Coming from a creative standpoint, you have to put on a whole different hat. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be a creative, and I want to get into my story, and but I'm at this millionaire's daughter's softball game, because I want him to fund the, and I got a promise to put her and all her friends in it. And it can get weird like that, where, at that point when the movie's done and everything, then you start finding all these reasons why it didn't work out. But hopefully that answered your question. That's how stage 5 came to be.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a monumental undertaking to get any kind of film done. And I remember there's a quote by Guillermo del Toro that he was saying, when a filmmaker dies, it's not like people go through, their desk and they find a bunch of old DVDs that they never published, right?
Yeah.
It's completely different if it was like a painter or a writer or a musician or something like that, where it's completely on you. You have like all these different other elements that you have to play with, the commercialism aspect of making films. Have you what do you think about the crowdfunding? Because I know that you're trying to build an audience. I see you on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put the links to everything you gave me. If people want to watch the film, if you have a link for that, we'll put all that in the description box below.
Awesome.
But like, what is your opinion? What is your take on like crowdfunding for filmmakers?
It's wild. I mean, there's people that get into a car wreck or there's even silly things. buy my sweater, and then the next day or the next week to have $500,000 or so. Real weird crowd. But then when you get specific to filmmakers or any creatives that really need the funding, it's hard. I don't know of an easy way. Like, what do I think about crowdfunding? I think it's phenomenal if it'll work for you. We tried crowdfunding before and we didn't really get anywhere. And then I'm sure there's other filmmakers that have done it and they've gotten everything.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really comes down to like, can you build up a audience online?
Yeah.
Which is that can be difficult, but I also don't think that it doesn't have to be this like, it doesn't have to be this huge thing that you do. I mean, like there's a lot of people on YouTube that do movie reviews, build up an audience that way, and then from there fund their own independent film. Have you considered doing anything like that?
So my wife and I had a podcast for a while, and that kind of took off during the pandemic. And then we kind of had to get back to work after that. The pandemic was over, the main part of it. But in that podcast we did movie reviews, and people really dug what we were saying, because my take on movies, well, I don't know. I don't know if I would go as far as like saying like I'm a purist or anything like that, but I just won't be swayed by mainstream. I just had a Facebook conversation with people about the Barbie movie. In like, my opinion, the Barbie movie was absolute complete trash. It was horrible. So when I went into it totally expecting the opposite. I said, this is going to be neat. Like, what a cool opportunity to have a take on Barbie and make it whatever you want. And it looks like they're going to do something a little bit different. This is cool. And I said, this is just boring. This is the word that came to mind constantly was weak. This is weak writing. This isn't. There's nothing nuanced or complicated about this. This is like a 10-year-old came up with this story, but because it represents what it represents, everyone has to be like, yeah, right. Yeah, let me be the first one to say that sucked. So once I said that, a whole bunch of different people jumped on my case, like, oh, you just don't get it, or they really put me in a box of you're just against what this movie stands for. Right. And I that went over my head. I was like, oh, I wasn't even talking about that. I was saying, the pacing, the story structure. You guys are just getting like blindsided by the message or what have you. But as like an entertaining film or like a story that's supposed to be plot driven for me. Not that it didn't have a plot or a storyline, but man, you talk about a weak. Anybody else did that for anything, that would have went straight to video. It probably would have never got picked up. That was trash. So I try to be as honest as I can and film reviews. So that's a good idea about the YouTube film reviews. I mean, I didn't think about that. I mean, doing it through the podcast was a lot of fun. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really where the opportunities are, is networking with other creative people, and then also just doing your own thing on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And seeing where that goes. Because I've been doing my YouTube channel. I've been putting a lot of work in over the last year. So I've been doing like film analysis type stuff.
That's cool.
Like I sent you. So I did like a Blade Runner film analysis and a Minority Report analysis that people can check out on this YouTube.
That's awesome.
Where I go into like the details, the story structure, and that sort of thing.
I have a story about that one. I want to tell you about Blade Runner and Minority Report.
Do it.
You have a second?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the author that they're written from?
Okay, dude. Yeah. So that's the thing. The reason why I started to do these analyses is because I've been taking his short stories and Philip K. Dick. I've been taking his short stories and turning them into comics. So it's like
absolutely, man. Philip fucking K. Dick is the man. Right now, I'm reading a. We could sell it to you wholesale. The whole. But the reason I got into him I got hired to do a commercial gig here in San Antonio.
Mhm.
And who is one of the people I'm interviewing? It is his nephew.
Dude, are you serious?
I'm absolutely serious. And let me get his first name. His first name, I'm just looking at my emails here. His first name is Larry. Larry Dick. Larry Dick. I believe Larry has a sister or it's his cousin, which would be Philip's daughter, unless Philip didn't have a daughter. Somebody else in the Dick family is an author. But anyway, I'm there interviewing this guy for he's a scientist doing a lot of really amazing work in the field of brain swelling and how to work with all of that. Um, and he's in between questions, we're bullshitting, and he starts asking me very similar to this. Hey, so what do you do? Blah 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 blah. So I tell him, filmmaking, blah, and I'm a writer. I'm trying to get it. Oh, same thing. I'm trying to get into writing. I've been writing for film. I've been trying to get into writing. And he said, "Oh, cool. My uncle was an author." And I said, "Oh, cool. I don't know what to say. Have you ever written anything I might have, read?" And he
Maybe.
said, "Well, I know you said you're getting into this, but he probably has written some stuff that you saw got turned into a film." And so immediately my interest peaked a whole lot more. I said, "Yeah, like what?" He said, "You ever seen a movie called Blade Runner?" And I said, "Get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about?" So then he starts telling me not only that, about the family history, about Philip,
Oh
Dick.
man.
Now, he was very honest. He goes, "I'm not going to pretend that I knew him, that I was best friends with him." No, he was much older than
Yeah.
But basically, which is probably common knowledge, he used to take a whole bunch of drugs, and he would have these ideas and visions and stuff, and he would write. And he said, "Man, we have the family." He didn't necessarily say him, but he said we have all sorts of scribblings, notes. I wouldn't say full-fledged stories, but and that's where I don't know if he said my sister, my cousin, is also an
Mhm.
author. Um, she has a whole lot of them, and it's just amazing. And I'm Googling him because I have to admit I'm ignorant about it. I didn't know who he was. So this was about 2 years ago, about a year ago, about when this conversation happened. So sure enough, and then he pulls out his phone and he shows me pictures that he took of his phone of pictures of him.
Mhm.
Little, I mean, you could tell it's the same guy.
Yeah.
Little with this guy, it was just blew my mind. And I said, "You're related to Phil?" He goes, "Oh yeah." I mean, that was the coolest shit ever. Since that day, I've gone down this rabbit hole, and every now and then I'll text him, "Hey Larry, whatever." And he says, he
Yeah.
goes, "Buddy, I'm not into it like you are. Like I'm into it, whatever, but you're telling me a lot of stuff that I'm like, oh, cool." He's into it, but he's not like a huge, fan like I'm a fan, like you're a fan.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
mean, if you're that into it, maybe I
Mhm.
could shoot you his
Oh
number or his
my
email.
god.
Like maybe you could. I've never
Yeah.
asked him anything like, oh, no, I take it back. I did tell him, "Hey, Larry, when we get through, they're in the process of building a whole bunch of shit at this where he works. When we get through this, which would be at the end of this year, the end of 2024, how about I film you? How about we do some kind of, I don't know, just something. Philip K. Dick's fucking huge, and I don't hear enough about him."
Yeah.
Okay, maybe. I don't know what I could tell you. I said, "I think people would just be interested to hear from you, from somebody from his family." Okay, yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah, maybe we could. Very cool guy, man. So
Dude.
really nice guy. He's kind of reserved, whatnot, but I definitely could introduce you. But that's why I'm a Philip K. Dick. Kind of a fanatic now. His stories, man, those are my kind of stories.
Yeah.
The collection of stories. Every single story could be a comic. Every single story you could turn into a film, man. I mean,
Mhm.
every story that I read, I'm like, fuck, that'd be awesome. That'd be an awesome film. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm a big Philip K. Dick fan.
It's yeah, man. So when I came out here to Thailand, I always knew about Philip K. Dick, but I only knew him from like Minority Report, Scanner Darkly, and then I knew he had an influence on like The Matrix and like other science fiction films. But I had this idea that like I wanted to do comic books, and I have my own ideas, but I'm still in the process of trying to learn how to write. So I wanted to find an author that I could really connect with, that maybe had like public domain stories that I could take his stories and turn them into comics, so that I could get a feel for creating full stories with the pacing and everything, and figure all that side of it out as I'm figuring out how I'm going to write my stories.
Yeah.
And so I started looking into Philip K. Dick stuff, and I'll include links to the comics in the description as well, and I'll send them to you. Like the first one I did is 50 pages, and it's the short story "The Hanging Stranger." I don't know if you know.
That's what you're posting on your Twitter, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, so I've seen it. Okay, I didn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, please send them still. But man,
Yeah.
that's awesome. No, The Hanging Stranger. I haven't read that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic Twilight Zone episode, man. I mean, like you can tell that he's had such an influence on everything.
Yeah.
Like The Hanging Stranger is just about a guy who's on his way to work, and he stops at a red light, and he looks over to the side, and he sees in the town square that there's something hanging from a lamppost, and he's like, what is that? And so he gets out and he walks over there to see it, and it's a dead body hanging from the lamppost, but everybody else is just, they're walking by it like it's not even there.
Yeah.
And he starts freaking out, and he's just like, why is nobody reacting to this? He's grabbing people like, do you see this dead body here? And they're like, what are you talking about? And then the cops get called, and it's I love his stories because I had a friend of mine tell me that, like, a friend of mine said it best, is like a lot of his stories feel like you can't tell if the protagonist is having some sort of an insight into like a greater dimension of reality, or if he's just completely gone insane.
Crazy. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's my kind of writing, man. It's my kind of writing. I really love it. I can really not necessarily relate to the context of it, but relate to being able to do something like that. Like every time I read it, it re-energizes me into, I can write like this. I can write just like that. And up until that point, reading different people's works, different authors, I didn't feel that confident in being able to write in their capacity. But man, with Philip Dick stuff, man, I feel some kind of, I don't know, corny, but I feel some kind of connection to the writing process. So I'm excited about that.
Totally, yeah. I mean, there is something about it that, like, I think he inspires confidence in people that want to do their own thing. I'm not 100% sure why that is, but I think it's because maybe his prose writing is not super complicated. It's not super. I guess you could say it's kind of almost minimalistic.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but the ideas are there. Like sometimes maybe I've heard a lot of people talk about some of his books where the plots just fall apart, but his ideas are still so good that it makes you want to read them, even if the plot is something that's completely broken.
Yeah, and that happens, man. That happens. Case in point was like Stage 5, like the idea, and that's what I've always been good at, like ideas. The idea is there. Okay, cool. I was always able to hook people with saying, what if the entire world, the population was dead and it was just kiddos left? What would happen? Cool, there it is. But what's crazy about that take on being creative is that now it's yours to screw up. Like you have a good idea, whereas working the other way around, maybe you don't have that great of an idea, but you make something out of it. Having a good idea in itself is intimidating. It's the same thing with like music. You have a cool riff or a cool something. Now it's yours to screw it up, man. Overdoing it, underdoing it. I mean, anything can happen. So yeah, Philip Dick, man, and they're simple ideas, and it's just where can it go from there? Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, so so in my film analysis stuff that I have on my YouTube channel, what I did was, part of it was to understand story structure, but the other part of it was to understand, um, like the ideas and like where they're coming from, right? Because his family published a book called The Exegesis of Philip K. Dick,
Oh wow.
and it's basically like, I'm sure you know about his experience in 1974 when he had a wisdom tooth pulled,
Oh yeah.
and okay, and then he was waiting for somebody to give him medicine, and when he opened the door, there was a woman standing in front of him, and he said that a, a, a ray of light hit the Christ fish pendant on her neck, and he said that he felt like he was instantly teleported back into like Roman times, and that him and her were basically like Christians in hiding, and that they were talking about like Jesus coming back. Like he had this crazy vision, and he
Oh,
couldn't figure
no,
out.
I don't think I heard all that. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So, but he wrote like on top of all the books that he wrote in the last 10 years of his life. I think that's when he did most of the writing. He also wrote like 9,000 pages of just like journal entries where he was just trying to figure out what it is that was going on with him, what it is that he had experienced, and that's what the exegesis of Philip K. Dick is.
Man,
And
that's awesome.
so it's interesting to like you go and you look into some of the ideas, like the ideas of precognition in Minority Report, and then you go and you look through his exegesis of Philip K. Dick. You look through that, and you just start finding like all these interesting connections, all these interesting writings that he did, that he never planned to publish. Yeah, it's
Man,
really
that's
cool.
wild. That's wild. Yeah, Philip K. Dixon, man, that's awesome. Very cool.
Have you ever so like okay so where are we at? We're at half an hour. Uh, can you give me 1 second? Let me see if I can plug my laptop
Absolutely.
in. I don't want my battery to go down. Give me 1 second.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah, I'll have to edit that out. So yeah, I got to tell you, it's really trippy to just run into random people that are somehow connected with something Philip K. Dick. It's like 6 degree. It's like six. What
Six
is it? Six.
degrees of separation.
Yeah, it's like 6 degrees of dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Very
um,
cool.
so, like, what is the next? Do you want to do like another film, or like, what is it that you want to do next? Because you said in 2016 you'll finish this up,
Yeah, it
and
was
you were talking.
really. I'm sorry, go for it.
So you were saying before we started the podcast that it's, it can be very taxing, to kind of burn you out. Is is that the reason why you haven't done another feature film since then, or like, what is? Yeah.
No, what had happened basically, oh man, so much happened with Stage Five. So we had a team. I started filmmaking in like 2006, 2007. And and one of the first features I did, or the first feature I did, was a huge learning experience. This film called The Powder Kids, and we always joke saying anybody that worked on The Powder Kids, there was your film school. We filmed that movie for 2 summers, and then in between, so basically 2 years. Um, and crazy locations and all sorts of, we didn't know anything what we were doing, but then I was lucky enough to join a crew. I got put as part of a crew doing dailies and DIT, where you assemble footage. So dailies, you're taking the daily footage, and then DIT, you're like ingesting it into hard drives, backing it up, making sure it's cool. Well, then dailies editor, I started just editing. So I wasn't really hired for that, but I started editing. Well, then the directors and producers saw what I was doing and said, "Oh, this is phenomenal," and they ended up using like 90% of my edit in their final film. That team of filmmakers, we started making movies. Like we found funding back to back to back. So we made two family films. This film called My Dog the Champion, and a film called Adventures of Pepper and Paula, two family films about dogs and kids or whatever. And then the last film we did was my film, Stage 5, and it felt like kind of like a climax, and that's all our crew could take. Like, it was filmmaking's, yeah, I mean, it's very strenuous work. We filmed Stage 5 for, you know, when you total up the days off and everything, it's like 30 days, like a month straight. And it was just madness, very difficult, 12-hour days, 14-hour days, 16-hour days. And then you're coming right back, 6 hours later and jumping right back into it. Release, we did it in 2016, got it out in the late part of 2016 or 2017, something like that. And then we had planned to come back to a film in 2019, 2020, and the pandemic hit. So everything we had lined up for 2019, 2020 fell through, and that was years of work leading up to that. That was 2017, 2018, meeting the right people, the funding, the blah, 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 getting all that going for that next film. And when that fell apart, everything changed after the pandemic. Those connections we had, those people we had, the access to funding we had, different crew members leaving, going to LA, going to Atlanta, going to New Mexico, our team splintered, just a perfect storm of stuff going wrong. Yes, a part of it was being burnt out by Stage 5, because Stage 5 was, Stage 5 was a failure. It didn't do what we wanted it to do. But luckily, I'm able to say this about it. Stage 5 was not the movie that I wrote, was not the idea that I had. It got bloated, it got changed, it got, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And it's still my fault. I was a producer. I'm the director. I'm the writer. But because of the, success that we had on those family films, our production team, we had another writer that we worked with. We had, different people in our ear from different, from Amazon or from Netflix or from Walmart, or saying, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And that took my very simple, dark, gritty, ugly idea of these two kids and the end of the world to 7 kids, and make sure one was a little kid that, kind of looked good, and then all these other kids and a military aspect of it, and it just ballooned out of control. So at the end of it, I'm also the editor. I also did all the music for the film. At the end of it, I'm watching this editing. I mean, even there filming, I was like, man, this isn't what I dreamed up. My simple, cool idea that I wanted to do, that was a stark, dark, sci-fi, crazy shit, is now a watered down PG, disaster. So that took a lot of wind out of my sails to do that again. Again, it's hard. And so after that, we were still gearing up. I said, okay, let's push forward. Let's go to the next one. Let's bounce back. Kind of the attitude of nobody's ever going to tell me how to do my film. I'm going to, you want to take more control of it. And then the pandemic hit. And so that killed the wind out of my sails again, and it wasn't pandemic hit for a week, that was a whole year. The hard stuff of not being able to do anything was at least a year. So that's huge. So then we're now like in 2021 or so, trying to build back that steam, and, different priorities, different things come up. And that's where writing came up. So during the pandemic, I started thinking, man, at the writing stage of Stage 5, at that writing stage, I loved what I had. I have so many ideas for films I want to do. What if, to build an audience, what if I start writing them, turning those into stories? And at least that way, I don't have to worry about different hands in the pot, and I don't have to worry, taking 2 years, although writing takes its own amount of time, and being left with a product that I'm not happy with. This way, it's just me, just me in the ring, basically.
Yeah.
And if it sucks or if it fails, well, then there's nobody else you can blame. It's just you. But already, I mean, I've written 2, little short stories, and I was very happy with them. And yeah, that's kind of what happened of what the stall is. What's next now. Do I want to make another movie? I absolutely do. I'd like to, but that's my thing. I just like being creative.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of recording an album. We should be recording in May. Like I said before, a musician. I'm working on a story that I recently scripted, but I love it in story form too. Doing my first ever animation, having an animation done,
Oh, wow.
an animated film, just a 10-minute short film, and then another feature. Sure, it could happen, but it goes back to that funding and whatnot. And then we kind of tackled that. So I am the board president for a nonprofit here in San Antonio, and that ties in through this. So it's the pandemic, don't know what we're going to do, blah blah blah. I'm a part of this nonprofit because one of the people on the board is our client for video production, film production. Long story short, my wife and I end up taking over this nonprofit, right? The nonprofit has to do with media, so on and so forth. So I started thinking, how am I ever going to get to a point where I don't have to rely on others for funding? Yeah. Even with a book, it's not that books are free to do. I mean, to get published, to do anything, it takes funding. I mean, if nothing else, marketing. How am I ever going to be at a point where I have that funding and I don't have to beg and borrow and be beholden to somebody else? So I said, through this nonprofit, so our nonprofit teaches students, middle school and high school students, how to do digital film production, audio engineering, graphic design, and digital photography. The idea is those students need to work on real productions. They need to work on real photo shoots. They need to work on real audio engineering gigs or recording a band. They need to work on real graphic design, like designing a book jacket or a movie poster, and they need to work on real films. Well, I wonder who has any projects like that they can work on. Well. That's the idea. So we haven't gotten there yet. But that's the goal. The goal is to do our own in-house productions. And I'm not greedy about it. I know some very talented filmmakers, artists, musicians. I want to bring us to the table and say, who has the best idea this year? This year, we're looking to fund, 2 photo series, an author's work, maybe some comics, an animated film, and a feature film. We have $1 million total. This is how much. Who's got? Well, I got an idea, right? And we kind of have a little conversation about, okay, what looks best, blah 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 blah. And if mine ends up being best, great. If it doesn't, great. But that's what's super exciting. That's literally what I'm doing right now. So because I have a whole bunch of buddies in filmmaking that say, hey, what are you doing, man? I mean, have you quit? And I said, no, I didn't quit. It's just, unless you're a cog in the wheel, it's hard to turn that wheel. A really good close friend of mine, his name's Lawrence Mercado. He's a special effects artist in LA. He works on huge things, Guardians of the Galaxy, all the Marvel movies, and he does special effects for him. He's not like the head guy or nothing, but he's a part of the team. So he has pictures with everybody you could think of. He just finished doing the Hunters season 2 for Amazon with Al Pacino and all, and he's right there doing it. Very talented guy. He told me a long time ago, Buddy, if you can come out here with me in LA, if you're willing to be producers, if you're willing to do camera op, assistant director, any a director and a writer. And I said, why is that? He goes, because that's you're trying to take that lead position, man. We're all happy with being spokes on the wheel or whatever, and you're trying to be the damn wheel. That's impossible. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's difficult. It's difficult. What I'm trying to do is difficult, being at the helm of things. But through this nonprofit, I think I've really found a way to achieve that. We haven't gotten there yet. We're making leaps and bounds every year. But yeah, that's what I'm working on. So hopefully that answered your question. Yeah, it kind of deflated me and everybody. It was kind of a perfect storm of stuff that took the wind out of my sails. But I'm working on it.
But I mean, that's the interesting thing about life, though. It's like we think that whenever we're going through something, that everything is just chaos. But then you look back and you're like, oh, okay, well, what seemed like chaos has put me in the perfect position to take advantage of this new situation.
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
sounds like you're pretty much at the beginning of having your own production house. Like if you can have something where you create your own IP. This is what's interesting to me. Like there's some artists that I follow that I try to pattern myself after. I'll send you some stuff and whatnot after this, but start an IP, simple, like a comic book, something along those lines, something that's pretty cheap to make. You build an online presence, and then you can take that IP and you can end up turning it into something else. I mean, we see it all the time. It's fairly obvious, but like we think like, oh no, that's just what happens with Marvel or that happens with this. No, there's so many comic artists that I've come across that have done like really well with just like their first book. Like one of the guys that I have interviewed on this channel, his name is I may forget his name, so but I think it's Joe Santag. I believe his comic was called Reaper Destroyer. Anyway, I think he raised something like 60 grand or something like that off of his first book.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
And he just took a year and he just like super focused on getting this book and then promoting it and go on to different podcasts and whatnot. So there's like, especially with what I've discovered on the Twitter space, like I hate social media, I hate dealing with it, but what I have seen is that there's a lot of comic artists that basically, they make their alliances within their group, and everybody kind of does like they do their book, and then they basically have like a podcast tour that they do, and they just go around and they just get on different people's podcasts and they promote the book, and then they put it out there and then rinse and repeat, and it seems to work really well for people. I've seen the same
phenomenal.
Seen the same thing with authors as well. So I mean, there is a lot of competition, but at the same time, I feel like every time you do something, like you say, for example, you make a comic, that's one thing, but then you have a YouTube channel where you're talking about your process and your inspiration, that's another thing. You do a podcast where you're connecting with other people, that's another thing. Each one of these levels, like more than half people fall off. Like most people, they'll say that they're going to do a comic or they say they're going to write a book and they'll never do it.
That's true.
Or they'll give it a shot for a little bit and they'll never follow through with it. They'll never go through the process of trying to figure out how to market it. So, and I don't think the marketing is like, I think it's just like doing what we're doing now.
That's right.
Like I said, it's just making connections with people and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what took the wind out of my sails to do that was that I wasn't happy with the final product of Stage 5.
Totally.
It was great that we got a distribution deal and we got it out there, and Amazon, I forgot where it was. It was on, I think it's still on Prime, and we had like talks for Netflix, but I was just so disheartened with I wasn't happy with it, that I wasn't willing, I put 1,000,000% of me into making it, but because the final product, wasn't what I envisioned. I was just kind of, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Get whatever deal. I don't care.
So was that because you said that there was a lot of hands in the pot? So that came down to that commercialist aspect of making films that we were talking about before.
Yeah.
Where somebody comes up with money and they're like, hey, put my daughter in this film. And you're like, that makes no sense for the film. Did you even read the script?
Yeah, it wasn't, I didn't have to do that, like put anybody in it like that, but I didn't have to do anything. I don't want to blame anybody else. It was my fault. But the our production team and whatnot, we were getting told by the distribution companies and whoever, like, make sure you do this and make sure, you know, you have this, or just remember bloating. It got real bloated, and um, these little kids, and it needs this aspect, and make sure you're appealing. It goes back to that same thing. If you try to appeal to everyone, you're going to end up appealing to no one. I wanted to make my dark little story, and that wasn't it. And it became like, you know, just PG-13 version, glossy. It looked too pretty version of something that I wasn't happy with. So yeah, that's why I think afterwards, like, oh, let's do this and more advertising, and we went to the American film market with it, but everything I was kind of a sourpuss about, because I didn't believe in it. And how could I sell it if I can't believe in it? So, you know, I'm very honest with, you know, when people have asked me before, man, this isn't our only feature. We've done other features, and then my wife and I have produced, and she's produced a whole bunch. So, you know, you kind of know, and I'm like, yeah, I'm one of the perfect people to ask or talk to about what not to do, like when they talk about what not to do. And look at how long it's taken me kind of like to recover from that. And I think that's just a creative side of me. Like the business side, you can go and, you know, producers and then producing the next one. I don't give a damn. I mean, oh, that one hit, great, it hit, let's go. But creatively, you know, I spent so much time writing the music for that, and I spent so much time, you know, 2 years writing that story and that script for it to be part, and that year editing it. It just, oh man, it messes you up, man. So yeah, but that's why I'm excited about the future, about doing the in-house productions. I'm excited to take everything I've learned and really, everyone says it like, don't compromise. I don't know. I'm sure you'll have to make sometime or another in your life, you're going to have to make some compromises. But maybe that compromise could be on your deal points or the percentage you get, or try as much as you can not to let it be on your creativity. If you have an idea, stick with it. You know, whatever it is, stick to that simple idea, and you know, let them fall where they might afterwards, because at least then, win or lose, you got to do what you want to do, and you won't have this nagging feeling that, well, if it was just this, or it was just, I hate that. And that especially happens with films, because people are very quick to say, you know, oh, but this is all wrong, and that day we only had that actor for so long. Shut up, man. If you have to do that shit, forget it. You know. And I remember hearing Scorsese talking one time, saying we needed this much money for whatever Goodfellas, and we didn't get it. You know, so I was bummed because we only got that. So I was like, man. On one end, I'm kind of relieved, because it's like he didn't even get what he wanted, but on the other end, I was like, but he still made a phenomenal. So, you know, there's no excuse, man. You know, so, and it's hard too when you're wearing double hats. I'm wearing a producer's hat, so I'm concerned about the money and finance and profit. But then it's like, oh, take off that hat and now be the director and be super creative. And hey, that's hard, man. I mean, you just yelled at me for an hour about how we go overtime and we're running out of money, and now you want me to, because the director in me wants to say, I don't care about the time, and we're gonna do this the way I want. You know, it's hard.
Cool, man. Well, we looks like we're getting close to an hour.
Absolutely, yeah.
Make sure to respect your time. I appreciate you coming and chat with me, man. It was fun. Really
definitely
cool.
Thank you, man. Anytime. I love this. I'm so glad we got to talk about Philip Dick and writing and everything, and I want to check out more of your work. I want to send you some of the stuff I wrote and see what you think of it. Yeah, anytime, man. I appreciate it.
Cool. So I have your Twitter handle and stuff like that in the description, I guess. Any kind of links it is that for Buddy with the film and whatnot, I'll put those in the description box.
Cool.
Thanks, guys, for watching, and take it easy, guys.